All right, shows that we're live on YouTube and Facebook. Go ahead and share this out and wait for Facebook to alert people. All right, for those of you that are starting to tune in with us, I am about to get us kicked off and started. Please do me the favor of liking this video and start commenting so I know who you are that's tuned on and I can give you some shout outs for spending some of your morning with us. Oh, goodness. All right, well, let's get this kicked off. Happy Thursday to everybody. I am Juliette Abdel, President and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for tuning in to our live broadcast. If this is your first time on here, please be sure that you hit the like button and the follow so you can get those alerts when we do go live in the future. And of course, so you can see other content that we post along the way, whether it's resources, information, or upcoming programs and events that we have. Now, if you're returning back to us, thank you for coming back. That just generally means that we haven't scared you off and some of this information is valuable. So I'd like to challenge you to share this out to your network so that others can know what's going on, can be as up to date and up to speed about it as you are. Now, a lot of you that are tuning in with us know that we've been hosting these videos dating back into March. You can find many of them on the video section of this Facebook page. They're also available on the YouTube channel, which is where we stream this at the same time. That's Westminster Chamber of Commerce. And find us on other social media platforms. We like being social, so we're on LinkedIn, at Twitter, and of course on Instagram at Westy Chamber, where we can engage with you should you tag us or connect with us on there as well. Now, several of you are already starting to hop on here. I see Jerry, Parker, Brian. I also see Councillor DeMott and a few others. Good morning to you, Parker. I'm going to start pulling up these comments so others can see this feature and get familiar. As our speaker is sharing information, it may come to your attention, whether it's comments or questions that you might have. Please feel free to use the comment section of this video broadcast to ask us those comments and questions or provide compliments like our speaker has already shared with us today. Self-efficacy, I think is what it would be called. Brian over here already kind of giving, and yes, Councillor DeMont, I see your comment. He is very humble indeed. Thank you, Jerry, Parker, and a few others that are tuning in with us. So most of you know Brian. I've actually brought him on here before with us. Brian has served our chamber as the founding board director, past chairman for 2 years, and has just been a remarkable addition to our business and overall community. He has been our Citizen of the Year for the City of Westminster and has numerous other notches under his belt. Now, one of the other hats that he wears outside of chamber and other community development projects that he has his hands in, and his job, right, with Luan, which you've seen him talk a little bit about that. He actually also is the president of the board for Woodrow Wilson Jeffco charter school that we have here locally. So from that lens, Brian, I was about to call you another name. Can you believe that? Brian is about to chime in and share with us
a lot of names.
So. Right? Yeah, no, this one was appropriate this time. Brian will chime in and share a little bit about the school for those of us that may not know exactly who they are and what they do and offer, and then go in a little bit more detail on how COVID affected them very early on, what they did to adapt to that, newer efforts that they brought in, whether it was a change in programming, health and safety for their employees, for of course the kids, and any additional staff or vendors, and then into the future what things might look like. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself. As you guys start hopping on though, I would love for you to engage with us. I see Myra on here. Good morning to you. Please start typing in any comments that you might have, just quick hellos or questions along the way. Brian, I'm muting myself, so it's yours to take away.
Okay, thanks Julia, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you doing these broadcasts and just highlighting different things in the community. So, like Juliet said, a lot of people know me from my work in the chamber over the past few years, but for longer than that, I've been involved with Woodrow Wilson Academy. My oldest daughter went K through 8 there, and now is a student at Stanley Lake High School. My younger two are in 5th and 4th grade there, and I've served on the board of directors for the past 6.5 years. Um, as just a regular member, as chairman of the board, and now as president of the school. So it's what I'm most passionate about. No offense to the chamber, but it's where I spend a lot of my time and energy, and just love it. So and I also like to brag about it a little bit. So I think it's important to know for folks that we have a school like Woodrow Wilson in our community, and it's something that we should take pride in. So we are a Jefferson County public charter school. So we are a public school. We're a choice school. So you would opt in rather than a neighborhood school where you go just because of your zip code or where you live. So we have students from really all over Jefferson County, but primarily the Westminster area. We're located in Westminster, just off of 94th and Wadsworth. And like I said, we have a kindergarten through 8th grade school, as well as a homeschool affiliate program with several locations, or with a couple different locations across Colorado. So I want to just give you some highlights of the school and what we've accomplished here. Aside from being one of the top performing academic schools here in Colorado, we just recently, about 2.5, 3 years ago now, completed a $5.5 million addition to our building. For those of you that are familiar or may not be familiar with charter schools are funded through the district and the state, but not at the same level as your traditional neighborhood public school would be. So we operate on a thinner budget than your traditional neighborhood schools do. And so we planned for this new addition to our building for 12 years and saved up for that. And we were able to pay cash for it after 12 years of saving. It was a $5.5 million addition. It's beautiful. Once COVID is over, I would love to take folks on a tour of the school so they can see the collaborative learning spaces and just really the thoughtfulness and ingenuity that went into putting this addition together. So the main portion of our building actually used to be a church that was sold to the school. We're in our 20th year. This is our our first year was 2000, so 2020 is our 20th anniversary. In addition to paying for the new addition, a couple of years ago, we became the first school ever in Jefferson County to pay off a bond early. And we did it 15 years early. And we did that through just conservative budgeting practices, planning for the future, being strategic about our choices, and setting priorities that made us most effective for the kids and to be sustainable for the long-term future. So we were among the first charter schools in the state to offer a free and reduced lunch program for our students. Charter schools are not required to do that. But we felt like it was in the best interest of our kids. And despite where we're located, we do have a pretty significant number of students that are on the free and reduced lunch program. And obviously COVID and the strain on the economy makes that even more important today. So we are one of the few charter schools. We have a full-time mental health staff member. So she works with the kids on social, emotional, and mental health concerns, and can be there for our staff as well and students. We have a full-time speech pathologist, which is uncommon for charter schools. Some charter schools share, some don't have one at all. We also, before this year, brought on a full-time remote learning coordinator. So I'll get to our COVID response in a minute, but one of the options that we have is a remote learning option for those students that may live with somebody that's immunocompromised or just feel more comfortable learning at home while the pandemic is ongoing. So we have a full-time remote learning coordinator. She's excellent, does a great job with the kids, and and helping facilitate their learning, even though they're not physically in the classroom. We have a full-time instructional coach. So this is something that you see in public schools, regular traditional neighborhood schools, where this is somebody who's constantly giving feedback and helping our teachers improve. And that's really important to us so that we can continue to deliver outstanding educational resources for our students. And then we have intervention specialists as well to help with those students that might have challenges or maybe come in behind grade levels or that kind of thing. So Woodrow Wilson has about 500 kids in school K through 8. And then we have several hundred more in our homeschool affiliate program. And that was going into last year and then this year, so last school year. March of this year, everybody knows the pandemic hit and everything shut down. So our teachers did an outstanding job of pivoting to a remote learning environment with about 3 days notice. And so worked incredibly hard to get the technology to the students that we needed to. We have Chromebooks through Google that we were able to supply to kids that needed them. We have hotspots that we were able to provide to those students that can't afford internet in their home. So this is students, so they can continue to participate even though it was remote. So finished last year in a 100% remote learning environment. Over the course of the summer, really monitored what the recommendations were from Jefferson County Department of Public Health, the CDC, and several other organizations, as well as the Jefferson County School District. And just put in our staff, our principal, Carol Bartusik, put in a tremendous amount of work over the summer. It really was not a summer break. But put in a tremendous amount of work on planning how we could bring kids back safely if they so chose to do so in August. So what we did, we were one of the first schools in the metro area to go back to an in-person learning environment when the school year started back in August. To do that, we really had to get creative with our building. So generally we have 2 classes in each grade level. They're generally 27, 28 kids in each class. We split that up in order to have the kids socially distanced. So we have their desks 6 feet apart. So if you can think back to your elementary school classroom or your middle school classroom, you're probably 2 or 3 feet from your neighbor, right? If not at a table with several other kids. So putting desks 6 feet apart is a challenge space-wise. So we had to split the classes up. So now each grade level has 3 cohorts, is what we call them. 3 cohorts meeting in different areas. So that way we could spread the desks out and keep kids at a safe distance. So we are using our gymnasium as a classroom. We're using our cafeteria. We're using other areas in the school that were not traditionally classrooms, just so that we can provide that added layer of distance and safety for the kids. Everybody is required to wear a mask when they're in the common areas. When the students are sitting at their desk, they're able to remove their mask because there's 6 feet of distance between them and their neighbor. Teachers, we have podiums that have the plexiglass shield around them. So when they're delivering their message, they can take the mask off. Generally, they wear them anyway. And then we hired additional custodial staff. So we have one dedicated custodian who is all day, every day, just disinfecting things and making sure that the school is safe and clean for our students. We do temperature screenings as the kids arrive at school. So as you pull up, we have staff members there that are masked, and they have digital thermometers, and they take the students' temperatures before they exit the vehicle, as well as ask a series of questions to qualify if the student's healthy and ready to come to school that day. So those are kind of some of the precautions that we've put in place. additionally, we realized over the summer there's going to be families who, we have students that are raised by grandparents. We have students that have parents that are immunocompromised, that kind of thing, and others that are just more comfortable learning at home until there's a vaccine or some kind of other treatment for the COVID virus. So for those students, like I mentioned, we brought in the remote learning coordinator. We have a system where they're receiving instruction from the grade level teachers, and then the remote learning coordinator is like their additional teacher who's live and answers questions and delivers content and things like that. So and then just try to make sure that they feel socially and emotionally connected to their classmates who may be in the building. So that is our additional learning option. We had about 18% of our students chose the remote learning option, and about 80 to 82% chose the in-person learning option. And then we have the option coming up here actually in a couple of weeks when the trimester ends. We'll give the option for students to shift in or out depending on their comfort level. For our homeschool program, homeschool students obviously school at home, but we do have, they do come together a couple days a week to do specials classes or things like that. Those are hosted at a couple different locations, one in Evergreen, one here in Westminster off 112th and Sheridan. And we, again, make sure that those facilities are clean and safe for the students, temperature screen kids, and that kind of thing to make sure that those students are able to learn safely as well. And then the last piece is coming into this year, we had to make sure that our staff wanted to come back and was ready to come back. And obviously with any group of people, as large as our faculty and staff is, you're going to have those that maybe have a medical issue that may make them more susceptible to the COVID virus. So we had to make sure that we had adequate staff to do so. They were chomping at the bit to get back. And for those that did have concerns, we made accommodations and really did everything we could to change their work to make sure that they still had a place and still could contribute, but do it safely and in a way that was comfortable for them. So that was a lot of information. Happy to answer questions or expand on anything that folks have.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. For those of you that are just now tuning in, we have Brian Head, who is the president of the board of the Woodrow Wilson Academy here at Jeffco Charter School in our community. And he has shared a lot of information about their school and how many students they generally have, how the programs are structured, from their individual classrooms broken down into a few different cohorts, to what they've had to do as a result of COVID, bringing in a remote learning coordinator, all the way to really checking students are even coming into the school through a questionnaire and screening them with those temperature checks and other items. And that is a lot of information, Brian. You guys are doing a lot of great things. So I've tried my best to capture a lot of those comments into the comment section of this broadcast. Hopefully I did not butcher any of it. I do see a lot of folks that have popped in here with us. Emilio, Jason Gank, also see you, Robin. Thank you guys for tuning into our broadcast this morning. Brian, you know me, and I like details. I like honing down on things. So before I do that, I see Brian Dice is just like constantly blowing up the comment section about how awesome you are for some reason. So you shared a quick good morning note to us earlier on, and then he just shared that you are somebody who others would value to have on their team, especially when they're facing adversity. You know, I can't echo that enough. Of course, working with you through the chamber and seeing how productive you've been in that lens as well. So we touched on a lot of things. You've shared with us some really great information about kind of what makes you guys stand out as opposed to some of the other charter schools in the area. And I thought it was incredibly beneficial. And even Jerry agreed. I'll pull up her comment here momentarily about these mental health specialists that you now have at your school that are there to provide that emotional support, social support for those kids. Of course, it's not just the kids; their staff might be able to use that. Do you have a sense of how that has been, how positive or useful that's been to the school? You can provide data metrics if you would like. You could just give us, theoretically what that looks like, but curious to know.
Yeah, so that is something that we're really proud of. So we brought in our mental, emotional, social health expert or specialist I believe this is her third year. And so again, as a charter, you've got to like, before you do anything, you have to scrimp and save and create priorities. We may wait on the playground equipment so that we can bring in this specialist, or vice versa. Anything that you say yes to, you also have to say no to something else. That's just the way that budgets work. Um, so 3 years ago, we brought her in. We were planning for it for a while before, and man, there's some things that you do, and you can't predict the future. But then once you're here, hindsight, you're like, man, that was just such a fortunate decision. So this year especially, I mean, there's huge social and emotional impacts for these kids. Um, you only get to be little once, and it's a scary time to be a kid. Everybody's walking around with masks. Everybody's worried about this invisible virus. And so as a kid, you want to play with your friends. You want physical interaction with people and things like that. So she's really been great working with our students there. It's also a challenging year for staff, so just to have somebody like her in the building every day is really incredible. Speech pathologists, so they're expensive. That's a profession where the supply does not meet the demand, and these folks are exceptional at what they do. So ours came to us a couple years ago, again, and has been just transformational for a lot of our students. Really, really good. And it's important to note that a lot of the people that, not a lot, all of them, all of the teachers and the faculty and the educational assistants and the specialists like this, they could make more if they went to work at a neighborhood public school. They could make more money. But for them, it's about the environment, it's about the culture, it's about some of the added benefits of working at a charter with smaller classroom sizes, more personal interaction with folks, that kind of thing. So we're really, really blessed to have these people on staff. They're exceptional, and they really do great work.
And even smaller now that you have 3 cohorts per one per one grade level, for sure. I'd imagine that's and I've met with your school's principal, and I can't think of another one that's just as passionate about what she does. And I mean, her heart is fully into that, and I think that resonates in those classrooms and with the teachers that you have and just the staff that's even there. So, Brian, tell me a little bit about what it looks like for those kids that are now remote. So we touched earlier on about a few different things that you were able to provide for those that might not have access to internet through the hotspots that you shared with them, which, you can always pass some of that along over here. You shared about the Google Chromebook and several other things that you were able to give those kids that chose to have that remote learning. And that's at about 18% is what you were saying earlier on. Have you been able to monitor the feedback from those kids until now? How does the communication look between your school and those kids to see, what their experience is along the way? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that remote coordinator is helping significantly in that regard.
Yeah, good question. And this is something that's really fascinating to me, and I've been doing a lot of reading, and there's going to be some really fascinating research that comes out over the next couple of years as we study the difference between remote learning and in-person learning. We have 3,000 plus years of recorded history of classroom teaching, a teacher being in front of kids physically and delivering content and handing down education generation to generation. We have about 3,000 years of recorded history of that happening. We have about 6 months of remote learning history. Obviously, there's virtual schools, there's online universities, there's in fact there are charter schools in Colorado that are completely remote, and that's how they started. But for the bulk of our students, this is going to be their first interaction with remote learning. Our teachers didn't train for this, right? So when they got their degrees in education, remote learning wasn't really a conversation. Use of technology was, but remote learning in the context that we have it today is different. So So it's been really helpful to have a remote learning coordinator that can monitor and have relationships individually with those kids, in addition to the teachers that are providing the instructional videos and things like that. Um, so it's the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive from families. There's other schools in the area that are using parent volunteers to coordinate their remote learning. There's others that are having just the regular teachers do it, in addition to the classroom stuff. And then there's obviously schools that are completely remote. So it remains to be seen. There's not going to be year-over-year testing, because the shutdown in the spring last year. So it's going to be hard to gauge in the short term. But I think long term we'll see how this plays out. And the exciting thing is it's forced education as a whole to invest in technology and to explore new ideas. And there's been a ton of innovation that's really exciting. So going forward, let's say the pandemic disappears completely, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I think some of the lessons that we're learning today are going to be incorporated long term into education, and that's a positive thing.
Great. Thank you so much for answering that question. I kind of knew it was a little bit, early on to assess some of these things, but it's always nice to see what indicators are out there. And kudos to the school. I know you led on with some of the accomplishments that you guys have done, from hiring on that speech pathologist and someone to help with the mental, social, emotional support for your kids and staff. But you also touched on the bonds that you guys had paid off early, 15 years. That's huge. Congratulations on that. And of course, you indicated that you guys have been saving for that for over 12 years and, paid in fully in cash for the addition of the spaces in your school, which is just amazing to see. So do you have any additional comments, Ryan, before we wrap out? I mean, I tell you, Ryan Dice, you can go ahead and pay him that $20. You got your comments well worth it out of it. I mean, geez, we're going to pull this last one. Some point we'll have to review that with the Indian quitting demonstration thing and getting back up. So we'll segment that at a different point in time, but feel free to pay him up that $20 at some point today. Do you have any additional comments you want to make before we kind of wrap up our broadcast?
Yeah, so so the context of that is Brian and I are doing a fitness challenge together, and both of us can barely move today because we're so sore. So we're sending text messages back and forth to make sure the other one is still alive. I just thanks to the chamber for highlighting the school. I really hope that people are proud that we have a school like Woodrow in the community. There's charters and neighborhood schools, and education is one of the most personal choices that families make. And it should be a choice that the family makes, in consultation with the school of their choice and things like that. So I'm a big fan of school choice and charters as public options, and really just hope that people take note of this kind of hidden gem in Westminster that we have here. And if people have questions, additionally, feel free to reach out. I will leave you with this comment. Due to the preparation, I believe, that our teachers put in the springtime when we went fully remote, and the work that our staff did over the summer, we use the same enrollment system that regular Jeffco schools use. This year we had the longest waiting list for every grade level that we've ever had in the 20-year history of our school. And I'm really proud of our folks for just doing the work that they do, because that's all. We don't do any marketing or anything like that. That's all word of mouth. It's neighbor telling neighbor. Team, soccer moms chatting on the sideline. Baseball dads passing the word along to teammates. So really proud of the school. Thanks to the chamber for highlighting it, and thanks, Julia, for everything you're doing throughout this pandemic.
Of course, we love having the school here and bringing light on things that are doing terrific and are a huge addition to what we have in the community. So I'm glad to have you guys, and I'm glad and fortunate for the relationship that we have with the school. And when people can go out there and hopefully tour it, they can see what I saw, and the expansion is just, it's beautiful to see. And it's a different perspective when you're older and you walk into this where you felt like it would have been huge when you were that age, right? So it's always such a fun experience. So thank you so much, Brian, and to everyone on your team that's doing their part to make sure that the kids are safe, that they're healthy, that they have somewhat of a normalcy to their schedule, but more importantly, so that their parents can continue to provide for them, right? By going to work and be able to keep some semblance of, of similarity in the home environment for them. So appreciate that. Everything you guys are doing. And for everyone that's tuned in, thank you for tuning into the broadcast, learning more about Woodrow Wilson, about what they have been doing to overcome COVID, how they have kind of put themselves apart or stood themselves apart from the rest of the charter schools and other schools in the area. Please feel free to share this out to your network so they know more about this hidden gem that's in Westminster. And Brian, please do not hop off as soon as I close out. Stay with me as I close this completely out. You all are aware we generally have a broadcast every day, so we'll likely have one tomorrow, of course, at 11 a.m. Please plan to tune in then for some updates. We do have a lot of things going on with the chamber, a lot of things that are coming with our health department, so we'll see kind of what update I want to have the lens on. Before I completely close out, we are coming really close to elections. That's on Tuesday is election day. Make sure that you go and drop off your ballot or go to a polling site, because at this point it's likely too late for you to drop it in the mail. If you've not already done so, please watch all the interviews that we had with our ADCO, Jeffco candidates for commissioners, and of course the House and Senate races that we had that touch Westminster. That's here on the Westminster Chamber Facebook page. It's on YouTube as well. They're very short snips. You get an idea of where that candidate is coming from, possibly their positions and their values, so that you can be a little bit more informed when you're voting for them here at the polling site. So thank you guys for listening to my rant, for coming back with us, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow morning. Enjoy the rest of the sunny afternoon.